Hello students, let us start today's session. In today's session, we are going to start studying a new module which is your module number 9. Now, this module is regarding game theory. And this game theory module number 9 is covered in your part B, which deals with quantitative techniques in decision making. And this topic is only covered in your new course. It is not there in the old course. And it is a very easy concept, very easy topic, very interesting also. So let us start this concept, game theory. Now, before going into the practical portion of game theory, we have to understand the theory portion, the terminologies they are going to use, that we have to learn. Who are the players in this game? Since it's a game theory, so we need to know who are the players and what are the terms being used in this chapter. So we are going to focus on terminology. Okay, so let us start with the theory portion first, and then we will switch over to the practical portion itself in this lecture only. So let us start with game theory. Now, what is a game theory? Game theory is again a decision making technique only. Here you are again going to make a decision. What decision? Decision about what should be our course of action. What should be our course of action? What should be our course of action? That what alternative we should apply in our business, that we are going to take decision about in game theory. Now, in game theory, they are opponents, they are players. Who are the players? Your competitors can be your players. So you are playing the game as well as you are playing the game with whom? Your competitors. So you are playing games with the people with whom you are having conflict, or who are your competitors in the market. So, and most important assumption in game theory is that both parties are rational people. Rational people. This theory assumes means we are pre-assuming that whatever rules we are going to learn under game theory, that rules will only apply if we assume that both the players or multiple players, all the players are rational people. They have complete knowledge about the market. So they are rational people, intelligent people. Okay, so they are, see what it is written here. Types of this game theory is basically a type of decision making where two or more rational opponents are involved under condition of either these 2-3 players are in conflict or they are in competition. Okay, so what we have gained till now, that here the players can be 2 players also, there can be multiple players also. Okay, then yes, now who has developed this game theory? Now, this game theory was developed in the year 1944. Now, originally this game theory was developed to solve some economic problems. Later, its further development led to help businessmen in dealing and deciding what course of action they should be taking. But earlier, this theory was developed to solve problems in economics. Now, who has developed this theory? Now, there was a Hungarian-born American mathematician whose name was John von Neumann, and also a German-born but American economist whose name was Oscar Morgenstern. He was the fellow friend to John von Neumann in Princeton University. He was a colleague to him. So these two people first developed the game theory. Now let us start what is basically the game theory. So we now know that game theory is basically a decision making in which one's choice of action depends upon the other people's course of action. What does it mean? That suppose there are 2 players. Okay, now these 2 players, this is player A and this is player B. Now player A will choose such a strategy, will choose such a course of action, or let us say will choose such a plan depending upon what other will do to his plan. If I decide to do any action in my business, I have to see how my competitors will counter counter back me to my strategy. If I choose to do lot of advertisement to increase my market share, if I decide to do lot of advertisement to increase my market share, now this decision if I take in my business, definitely my competitor will also take some counter strategy. So before taking any course of action, first you have to look what counter strategy the other party is going to take, and then deciding that should we go ahead with this plan or should we go ahead with some other plan. So keeping in mind the other party's counter strategy before taking your strategy, if you keep this in your mind that what other will do, and when you think about other party's counter strategy and accordingly you plan your strategy, then this game theory is coming into picture. So how you make a decision, that is what game theory will teach you, and you will learn the rules and principles of deciding what course of action you should take in keeping in mind the opponent's course of action. So please read this. Game theory, it is a type of decision making in which one's choice of action is determined after taking into account all possible alternatives to opponent participants in the same game. Okay, then now let us and this game theory doesn't tell you that how you should play the game. It tells you how rules and procedures, rather I would say it tells you procedures and principles that on which basis you should select which course of action to be taken. So they will tell you how to decide which course of action you should take, the rules, and basically game theory does not tell how a game should be played. No, it tells you the procedure and principle on which basis you should select your course of action. When I will be teaching you an example of the first practical part, then these words will be more clearer to you that how we decide our course of action keeping in mind opponent's course of action. Okay, now let us start the basic terminologies which will be used in your game theory. First is, in game theory there are players. There can be 2 players, there can be n number of players. So players are the participants, refers to individual or a group aiming at a particular objective. Now play is the game that we are whatever course of action I will choose after keeping in mind the opponent course of action, that course of action which I am going to choose is my play. Okay, when player has chosen a course of action. 2-person game means when number of players are 2. When number of players in the game are 2. So it is called 2-person game. Okay. Then what are n-person game? When the number of participants in the game are more than 2. Where n is greater than 2, it is called n-person game. If number of players in the game is n. Now what is zero-sum game? Now I will take you up to an example where I will explain what is zero-sum game, and I will explain what is pure strategy. I will explain what is mixed strategy through an example. Please observe this example. Now this is an example. Please observe. Now in this example there are 2 people who are playing this game, which is firm B and firm A. Now the firm which is whose strategies are written in the rows, this firm A is called maximizing player. Maximizing player's strategies are written in the rows, and the opponent player, that is firm B, strategies are written in column. These are the strategies, my dear students. These are the strategies which firm B can choose from. So they are written in the column, and firm B will be called as minimizing player. Why? You will just get to know. Keep some patience. You will get to know why this player B is called minimizing player and why player A is called maximizing player. But for time being, you should know that one player strategy. Let us say I am player A. I want to maximize my gain. So my strategies will be written in the rows, and the other counter opponent party strategy will be written in the columns. Now this, yes, now these figures What are these figures? Let us observe this. These are payoff. Basically, this table is payoff matrix. This table is called payoff matrix. Now, this matrix represents what firm A will get, and whatever firm A will get is the loss to firm B. So, these figures represents what firm A will get, and accordingly, these figures represents what firm B will lose. Okay. So, let us say, for example, if I choose, firm A chooses no advertising policy. If I choose no course of action, if I choose the course of action as no advertising, and firm B chooses medium advertising. Now, if you see the corresponding part, this is the corresponding part. This column, this cell is the corresponding part. If I choose no advertisement and my opponent chooses medium advertising, then what I am going to gain? 5 rupees I am going to gain. 5 is the gain to me. Now, if 5 is the gain to me, then this amount represents the loss to firm B. Similarly, let me repeat again. Similarly, if I choose heavy advertisement and correspondingly, for example, the firm B chooses heavy advertisement. If I am choosing also heavy advertisement, other firm is also choosing heavy advertisement. Then if you see the corresponding cell is this cell. Now, this 10 rupees is my gain, and whatever is my gain, it is the loss to the other party. Okay. Now, if you see, for example, if I choose, let us say no advertisement, and firm B chooses heavy advertisement, then what is this 2 representing? This is the juncture cell. Now, at this cell, -2 represents my loss, because this payoff is my payoff. And if this is my loss to me, so that means this is the gain to the other party. These all figures represents my gain or loss, and just make it opposite in the sign for the opponent party. So, if it's -2, it is loss for me. So, it is gain for the other party. These are the payoffs. So, this matrix shows the different strategies for the players and shows what their payoff going to be under different alternatives, combination of alternatives. Okay. So, we have understood this thing, that what you have to learn by now is that that the maximizing player strategies are written in the rows, and the minimizing player, the counterparty, writes their strategies are written in the columns, and these cells represents the payoff, and they are payoff for the maximizing player, and similar is the payoff for the minimizing player, but opposite. If it's a gain for me, then it's a loss for them. Okay. Now, which strategy, suppose, so we first of all just read this thing first. Payoff, what is payoff matrix? Now we know what is payoff matrix. It is a tabular representation showing outcomes of payoffs corresponding to different strategies of the participating player, and following is an example of a payoff matrix of a 2 players are there. Now, what is zero sum game? Zero sum game means what if there is a zero sum game and there is a non-zero sum game. Yes, what is a zero sum game? If after applying my strategy and taking into account the counter strategy, whatever is my gain exactly equal is your loss, then it is a zero game, because whatever is my gain, that is your loss. So that is called zero game. So if sum of amounts the won by all the winners is equal to the lost by all the losers, then the game is called zero sum game. In other words, sum of gain and losses in such a game is 0. So sum of my gain and your losses is 0. Okay. So whatever amount, if in a game, whether there are 2 players or multiple players, if total gain is equal to the total loss suffered by other parties, then it is a zero game. But what is non-zero game? What is a non-zero game? Obviously it is opposite of the same, that where it is not equal. What is not equal? Where the sum of gain or losses in a game is not equal to 0, or I should say where the total gain is not equal to total loss. Whether there are 2 players, 4 players, 5 players, some players will gain, some players will lose. So total amount of gain, if it is not equal to total amount of loss, so obviously their sum will not be equal to 0, right? Their sum means addition. So but in zero game, if 5 rupees is the gain and other party's loss is 5 rupees, both are same, then obviously their sum is equal to 0. But here, if gain is 7 and loss is only, let us say loss is 10, then it is not equal to 0. Their sum is not equal to 0. So non-zero game. So the games can be of 2 types, where the gain and losses are equal, then it is a zero game, sum zero game. And if, yes, zero sum game, and if the gains are not equal to losses or their sum is not equal to 0, then it is a non-zero game. Now what is a 2-person zero sum game? Very simple. Here the word is 2-person, meaning the number of players are 2, and their net gain is equal, their gain is equal to their loss, that is their net gain is 0. Same thing is written here. Please observe. When there are only 2 players participating in the game in which has resulted in zero sum, then it is called a 2-person zero game. What is an n-person zero game? Very simple. These all things can come in your MCQs, my dear students. These all can come in your MCQ. So what is 2-person zero game? What is n-person zero game? So n-person zero game means there are 2 people. No, there are more than 2 people. Where since it's a zero sum game, that means total amount of gain is equal to total amount of loss. Hence sum of gain and loss is equal to 0. So for a game with a zero sum and n participants, then it is called n-person zero game. Okay. Now there can be an example? Yes, there can be an example. Suppose for example, 2-person zero game, let us talk about 2-person zero game. So there are 2 firms who are competing to increase their share in the market. There are 2 firms who are competing with each other to increase the market share. Firm A also wants to increase their market share, and firm B also wants to increase the market share. So if one firm's market share increases and it affects the other firm's market share and it decreases the other firm's market share almost equal, that means if 1% is gaining market share 30%, his market share is increasing, and other person's market share is decreasing by 30%, then it is called zero sum game. It is called zero sum game. You can see here competition of 2 firms trying to increase their share in the market. Here the gain in the market of the one will almost equal to the other person's loss in the market. Then it is called zero sum game. 2-person zero sum game are also called rectangle game because their payoff matrix is in rectangular form. Now what is a non-zero game? We know non-zero game means where their gain or loss is not equal. Is there an example? Answer is yes, there is an example. Is it necessary? Is it necessary when 2 firms, let me write here, when 2 firms, yes, when 2 firms compete with each other to increase their market share, and both of them decides to increase their marketing cost, and they do heavy marketing. Both of them decides to follow a course of action, heavy marketing. Firm A is also doing heavy marketing and firm B is also doing heavy marketing. So it is a possibility that firm A's market share also increases and firm B's market share also increases. In that scenario, since both are gaining, no firm is losing. Here the gain is not equal to loss, so it can, now in this case it will be a non-zero game. Non-zero game. Example, you can observe competition between two firms for increasing their respective market share through intensive advertisement campaigns. Due to advertisement of their product, both firms gains market share, which may not be equal in magnitude. Some might gain more, some might gain less, but both are gaining. So in this case, it is not gain is not equal to loss. So hence it is a non-zero game. Since hence at the same time gain of one is not equal to loss of the other, not exactly equal, amounts to not zero game. Okay. Now strategy. Here the main chapter will now start. Till now it was just general conversation going on, because these terms we will be using in doing practical questions. Strategy, the course of action, the rule which let us say, let me write like this. When you decide to take course of action, let us say I am going to take course of action A1. How do you decide? How do you decide this? That okay, I will take this course of action. Among these following course of action, I am going to choose this one. How do you decide? Is there any strategy behind it, or you just taking like that only? So when you decide a strategy, a course of action using some rule, then that is called strategy. How do you decide which chapter to study first and which chapter to study later? Is there any rule you are following? That rule will be your strategy. If you are studying in night, you should take practical subject. If you are studying in morning, you should take practical subject, whatever suiting your theory subject. So the rule which helps you to taking the course of action, that rule is your strategy for deciding your course of action. Okay, so here also, what is strategy? Very simple. Don't worry about writing these notes. You can write them, and I will also provide these. I will also put these notes on your app. You can download also, and you can write also. Okay, but right now just focus on the lecture. So what is strategy? It is the predetermined rule. Using this rule, player decides his course of action from his own list of actions. Now strategy can be two types: pure strategy and mixed strategy. What is a pure strategy? Very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. What is pure strategy? What is pure strategy? Now suppose I have multiple options available to me, multiple course of action. Should I choose A1 course of action, A2, A3, A4? Obviously, whatever my course of action will be, it will depend upon the counter party, that is my competitor, course of action. And I would like to have maximum gain, counterparty course of action. Now if I know, if I will choose this strategy, suppose my counterparty strategy is B1, B2 and B3. And now I know that if, let us say B4 also, okay. Let us make it a rectangle, a square matrix. Suppose if I choose A1 matrix, if I choose A1 strategy, if I go ahead with A1 strategy, and I am very much 100% sure that if I choose A1, counterparty will choose this strategy, B3. Now if I know this, that what my competitors are going to do, 100% I'm sure that if I choose this, he will do this. Then that strategy which I am going to now put in action will be my pure strategy. When you know with 100% certainty that if I do this, my counterparty will do that, then the rule that you're going to apply in choosing the course of action, that rule will be pure strategy. Ma'am, what does it mean? Just have patience till this point. See, here we will be using an example. To tell you when there is a pure strategy games. Pure strategy, when you know that if you do this, other party will do this. Then how do you decide what rule to apply to take the course of action? Okay. So what rule? The rule that we will teach you is the maximum the rule is maximum minimum strategy. It is called as maxi mini and mini max criteria we will be applying when that criteria is to solve pure strategy. And what is pure strategy? When you know what counterparty is going to take course of action when you do following course of action. So if you are aware with certainty what other party is going to do, then the strategy which you are going to use is pure strategy. But if you are not aware that what other party is going to do with certainty, then probability situation arises. Okay, if I will choose this strategy, if I will choose this course of action, then it is a possibility that he might choose this or might choose this. Then there is a probability situation. Then how do you decide which course of action to follow when you are not certain what course of action the counterparty is going to undertake? Then a probability based course of action you will undertake, and that is also covered in your course. So basically in your course you have to deal with pure strategy and mixed strategy and we will teach you how to decide which course of action to follow when either you know with certainty what counterparty will do, or either you are not certain, there is a probabilistic situation, then a mixed proportion strategy will be done. Mixed proportion strategy means that you have to decide, you cannot be certain what other party is going to do, so their proportionate strategies will be used. Okay. So here let us read what I have taught you. Pure strategy to be used when a player knows what other player is going to do, a deterministic situation is obtained. Thus it is a decision in advance of all plays always to choose a particular course of action. The objective is to maximize the gain. Mixed strategy. If a player is guessing as to which activity is to be selected by the other on any particular occasion, a probability situation is obtained. When you are just you are not certain, when you are just guessing what he will do, he might do this, he might do that, then in that case you are going to apply mixed strategy. How it is applied we will learn. Thus it is a decision in advance of all the plays to choose a course of action for each play in accordance with some particular probability distribution. The objective is to maximize the expected gain. When a player decides in advance to use his available course of action in some fixed proportion, he is said to be using mixed strategy. In other words, we can say that the mixed strategy is a selection among pure strategy with some fixed probabilities. Here the probabilities will come into picture. And what is a payoff? I have just told you that in payoff matrix these figures are the payoffs under various strategies combinations. One person's gain is other party's loss. It's a quantitative measure, outcome of playing the game. So payoff, outcome of playing the game is known as payoff. In other words, net gain is the course of action or strategy brings to a player for any counter course of action or strategy of the competitor. In business situation, measure of satisfaction could now what is these figures are? These figures might be representing profit value, or they might be representing increase in market share. So these are example they are giving you: increase in profits, expansion in market share. This is just theory. We have to just one time go through all of them. So let us see. The first page we have done, second also. This, don't forget, this theory was developed in 1944 by two Hungarian mathematician, John von Neumann and his colleague in Princeton University, Oscar Morgenstern, who was a German born American economist. Then we know there can be two participants or n number of participants. The game can be zero game or non-zero game. Then we know strategy is the rule which will help you to decide which course of action to be followed. Strategies can be two types: pure strategy or mixed strategy. When you know what other party is going to do, then your strategy will be pure strategy. But if you do not know, you're just guessing the other players move, course of action, then there will be a mixed strategy in which you will be using probability. Then Payoff, we know it is a measure of what you will get under different course of action. Payoff matrix is this. Now, we just explained here that, for example, suppose you choose no advertisement and firm B chooses medium advertisement. So this 5 rupees is a gain to firm A and it is a loss to firm B. Two firms are competing for business. It's just an example. Two firms are competing for business with mentioned strategy so that one's gain is another loss. If firm A chooses strategy no advertisement and B chooses strategy medium advertising, then firm A's gain will be 5 and firm B's gain will be loss will be 5. Now, don't read this first. Let us go and take an example. Yes. Now let us start with the practical portion and let us make game theory very interesting now, and let us start with an example. Before starting the practical version, please write down the notes that we have read. This is your module number 9. I will be providing PDF also, but if any students wants to write, pause the screen and start writing. Game theory. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. This theory portion is important because it can be asked in MCQ. What is a zero sum game? What is a non-zero sum game? What is a two-person zero sum game? I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. All these we have just read. What is mixed strategy? When we are guessing as to which activity to be selected by the other on any particular occasion, it's a probability situation. Pause the screen and write it down. better meaning you will understand once we start doing questions on pure strategy and mixed strategy. Pause the screen, write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. Do write this example also. What is a payoff matrix? It's a tabular representation of outcomes of payoff corresponding to different strategies of participating players. I'm scrolling the page. Just trying to teach you here that if firm A chooses no advertising and firm B chooses medium advertising, then this 5 rupees represents what? Your 5 rupees value represents what? It's a gain to firm A, and if it's a gain to firm A, then this payoff represents loss to firm B. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm changing the screen, changing the page. Now don't write the rules of payoff matrix now. Let me first teach you the example. Yes, don't write all this. Let us move on to the example. This is an example to illustrate you how when it is a pure strategy, we are going to take pure strategy case where we know what other party is going to do. Okay, and this is going to be an example of 2-person zero-sum pure strategy game. So let us start with this example. Yes, now let us take up this example. This is a very interesting example. Now you will start liking what is game theory all about. Now this example is basically when 2 players are playing. Okay, 2 players, and here we are assuming it's a pure strategy game. That is, we know what other party will do. Their course of action we can predict with certainty. Okay, so how we are going to decide our course of action? So the rule that we have to follow is maxi, minim and mini max criteria. What does it mean? We will just explain it to you. So let us see this payoff matrix, and you yourself will decide the course of action. Now you are firm A, and the counterparty is firm B. Now firm A has 2 course of action. Either firm A can go ahead with course of action A1 or A2. Now if firm A1 goes, if firm A chooses A1 strategy, suppose let us assume that firm A chooses A1 strategy. Are you understanding what I'm saying? If firm A chooses A1 strategy, what will be its payoff? Then firm A can get 2, 18 or 4 value. Any of such values can come. Obviously, now these value depends upon what B will choose. Now if B chooses B1, then you will get A2. If B chooses B2, then you will get 18. And if B chooses B3, you will get 4, right? Now since it's a pure strategy, we know what the other party will decide. We know. How do we know? You can see here. Just let us observe. If firm A chooses A1 strategy, if firm chooses A1 course of action, then these are the gains which A will get, and B will always want A to lose. So in which of the three, to value 18, 4, which is the value which is lowest gain to A? Now B will go ahead with that value because B doesn't want A to win, doesn't want A to have much more gain. So B will try to choose that strategy which will give the minimum gain to A. Am I correct? So that means B will choose this value, this strategy. Why? So I'm writing here, firm A can choose his course of action A1, but his gain will depend upon the course of action of B, and B doesn't want A to win or gain much. So B will choose that strategy, that course of action where A gets minimum benefit, okay. Then if firm A chooses, again firm A can choose A1 also or A2, any one course of action. Suppose firm A chooses A2, then his gain can be this much, this much, this much. Now his gain will depend upon, firm A's gain will depend upon firm's B counter course of action. Now firm B doesn't want A to gain, so firm B's counter strategy would be to ensure that firm A doesn't gain much. In which option firm A is gaining less? Obviously it is going to be 8 in this. That means firm B will choose B3 if firm chooses A2. I'm writing here 8. Now this is what we are just thinking right now. Nobody has taken any course of action, only firm A is thinking. Let me tell you one thing. Firm A is thinking that if I choose this course of action, then what course of action B will choose? B will definitely choose that course of action which will give the least possible result to firm A. So accordingly we have chosen the lowest of the rows. Can you see? We have selected lowest of the rows. Now this is the benefit. Let me write here. This is the benefit that A will get if he chooses A1 or A2, because B will not let him get maximum benefit. B will not let him get maximum benefit. So this is the maximum he is going to get if he chooses A1 and A2, right? Correct. So now tell me, should firm A choose A1 or A2? Because if he chooses A1, he will be getting maximum 2 rupees only, because B will counter back his strategy. And if firm A chooses A2, firm A will get 8. So obviously firm A will choose maximum out of this. Out of these minimum values, firm A will choose this, which represents what? Which represents A2 and B3 strategy, right? A2 and B3 strategy, right? This is the rule you are going to follow. First, select the minimum value in the row. Out of 2, 18, 4, what is the minimum value? 2. Out of 16, 10, 8, what is the minimum value? 8. Now, out of this, select the maximum value. That is the strategy of the maximizing player. Okay. Which has a common sense approach also, which I have just explained it to you. Now, let us see what B will do. Now let us move on to B also. Okay. Now see B. You can observe here B. Now if B can go ahead with B1, B2 strategy or B3 course of action. Now firm B has 3 course of action. Now if firm B goes with B1, then these are the gains. 2 and 16 are the gains to firm A. That means 2 and 16 are the losses to firm B. Now firm B can incur a loss of 2 rupees or 16 rupees. It will depend upon the strategy of firm A. Now if firm B goes with B1, firm A will try to maximize its gain. Now if firm B chooses B1 strategy, firm A will choose that strategy which will give him maximum gain. He is a maximizing player. He always wants to maximize his gain. So he will choose this maximum. If firm B chooses B2 strategy, then firm B can get 18 or 10. But it will depend upon A at A's counterback strategy. Now, company A will always try to maximize his gain. So, maximizing gain is here 18. Then B3. If firm B chooses B3, strategy, then firm A will counterback. Now firm B can get 4 rupees or 8 rupees value, but it will depend upon the strategy firm A will choose. Firm A always want maximum gain, so firm A will choose this 8. Now these are the gains to firm A. Now, still firm B has to choose. Should it go with B1, B2, B3? Now, firm B will always want to have, let firm A get less benefit. Now, these are the gains to firm A. Let me tell you, these are the gains to firm A. So, obviously, firm B would like to give firm A maximum gain. Answer is no. Firm B would like firm A to have less gain. So, that means this is the strategy which firm B will choose, B3. So, firm B will choose this strategy because they would like here, even though 16, 18, 8 is a loss to firm B, then firm B will choose minimum loss to itself. So, it will choose 8. But firm B will choose B3 and firm A will choose A2. Now, if you see the rule which I have mentioned here, now this rule states that maximum, minimum, right? Now here, if you observe, my dear students, please see. Now this is divided in two parts, maxi and minimum, and this is minimum and max. Now this is first part, this is second part for the maximizing player. First you have to select the minimum of the rows. Here you have to select the minimum of the rows, and then select the maximum out of this. In case of the minimizing player, again this is the first step and this is the second step. You select the maximum of the rows, and then select the lowest out of this, minimum out of this, and that is your strategy. If you select the minimum is 8, this is your strategy, firm B strategy. Here maximum is 8, this is firm A strategy. Okay, so now let me put figures again. Let us revise once again with the steps. Just a second. Yes. Now in this example, now what you have to do in exam? What do you have to do in exam? If such a question comes, what you're going to do is, how do you remember this strategy? You do not have to think again and again in the exam that if this will do, this person will do, then what other will do. Don't think like that. Just there are steps. What are the steps? Just write this name, maxi, minimum, mini, max rule. This is the rule for firm A. Now in this rule, this is for firm A. Okay, this is the first step and this is the second step. The later part is your first step and this is the second step. Now select the minimum value. Now in the row, select the minimum value 2, and in the second row the minimum value is 8. Out of this, select the maximum value. This is the strategy for firm. That is what strategy? A2 is your chosen strategy of firm A. Similarly for firm B, what are you going to do? This is a strategy for firm B. This and this is first part and this is second part. Now select the maximum of the columns. What is the maximum of the column? 16. Maximum of the column 18. Maximum of the column 8. Then select the minimum value. Minimum value is this. So this will be the strategy of firm B. So this is the common. A2 and B3 is the strategy, and here the gain of A is equal to loss of B, 8. Both are 8 values. So it is a 2% zero sum game. But the strategy uses a pure strategy. Why pure strategy? Because we know if we take this course of action, what other will take course of action. We are aware of it with certainty. So what rule we follow here? Just remember the name of the rule. The name of the rule is maxi min dash mini max criteria. First max mini, then mini max criteria. This is very important rule. Okay, so you can write it down here, and we have written the steps also here. These are the steps. Now if you see here, maxi minimum rule, the steps. First, minimum. So in each, find minimum value in each row of the given payoff matrix. This denotes the minimum possible gain against each strategy of maximizing player. Then out of these minimum values, select the maximum value. Maximum value is the maximum of these minimum values. Then minimax value. In minimax value, first you will do what? Maximum value. So find the maximum value in each column of the given payoff matrix. This denotes the maximum possible loss against each strategy of minimizing player. Then you select the minimum out of that. Minimax value is the minimum of these maximum value. Now this 8, the value which you have derived 8 is the gain of firm A is 8 and loss of firm B is also 8. This is your saddle point. Saddle point is the value of the game. What is the value of the game? What do you get out of this game after playing your play, after taking your course of action? What is the value you're getting? You're getting 8 rupees as the value. 8, whatever the value represents, rupees or units or whatever, that is your saddle point. Saddle point represents the value you get out of the game. It is the payoff from the game. It is the payoff from the game. So saddle point is a set to exist when maximum minimum values are equal. The saddle point is the position of such element in the payoff matrix which is minimum in its row and maximum in the column. Saddle point is a solution of the value of the game. Strategies of the two players corresponding to saddle point are their optimal strategy. Now this is the optimal strategy for both the players. What optimal strategy? That firm A chooses A2 and firm B chooses B3. This is the optimal strategy for both the players. Okay. So saddle point gives you optimal strategy. If there is more than one saddle point, then that means there are more than one solution will be possible corresponding to each saddle point. Okay. Now from the given example, please fill up once again. Yes, just let us fill up once again this bracket. If firm A chooses strategy A1, firm B will choose which counter strategy? If firm A chooses A1, then firm B will choose which counter strategy? When I was explaining you earlier, B will obviously choose that strategy which will give A the minimum benefit, because these figures 2, 18, 4 represents the gain to A. So A should get least gain as per B. So then B will choose B1, right? So we have to write here B1 as counter strategy. Now if A chooses A2, then what will happen? Then what will B do? B will want, let me write here 2. B will choose the strategy which will give A the less benefit. So A gets benefit here. B will choose B3, which will give A only 8 rupees benefit. B3. Then hence most preferred position for A should be what? What should be the preferred situation? A should go for A1 or A2? Obviously A would like to have the maximum benefits, and these figures represents the gain. So he will choose this, that is A2. Would be A2, where it gets higher payoff of value 8, right? Then now let us go to B. Now observe firm B, who is a minimizing player. The firm B can choose B1, B2 and B3. Okay, so let us go on in our question. Firm B can choose, just we have to fill up the worksheet. Yes, so firm B can choose B1. Now if firm B chooses B1, which will give 2 rupees and 16 rupees gain to A, then what will be the counter strategy of A? A would like to have maximum gain, so A will get 16 gain in this. If firm B chooses B1, firm A will get 16 rupees of benefit, because firm A will choose A2 then, right? So let me write here that if firm B chooses B1, firm A will get counter strategy will be A2, as it gives max value to firm A, right? Everybody thinks their benefit, right? B wants B wants to have least loss, or I should say B wants the other party to have less gain, and A wants to have maximum gain. Okay, now let us see if firm B chooses B2 strategy. This will give 18 rupees and 10 rupees gain to A in under 2 situations. So firm A will choose 18 maximum gain, that is A1 strategy. So let me fill here. If firm B chooses B2 strategy, then firm A will choose A1 strategy. Correct? Then again, as it gives the maximum benefit. Let me write here, as it gives maximum value to firm A. Then if firm B chooses strategy B3, it will give 4 rupees value and 8 rupees value to firm A, and A will want to have maximum value, so it will choose 8 rupees, that is A2 strategy. A2 strategy. Again the same reason. Now ultimately firm B will choose what strategy? Now here firm A, let me write here, firm B chooses B1, then firm chooses, will get 16, 18 and 8. So now firm B will want that firm A should get less benefit. So definitely firm B will choose B3 strategy. This gives the least gain to firm A, right? So B3 will be the chosen strategy. Firm B will choose B3 since it gives minimum gain to firm A, right? So this is how strategies are decided. Now what I have told you how you have to do, you have to just remember the maxi-min, then mini-max criteria. Okay, now please write down this example. Yes, please write down this example. Yes, pause the screen and write it down. Pause the screen, I'm enlarging the page. Yes, pause the screen and write it down. This maxi, mini and mini max criteria is to be used only when it is a pure strategy game. I'm scrolling the page. This is how firm A will think and how firm B will counter react. Pause the screen and write it down. Yes, the next page. This is how firm B is thinking. The optimal strategy for firm B will be B3. Pause the screen, write it down. Pause the screen, write it down. Yes, I'm scrolling the page. Then this is an extract from your only book, CME module book, where they have written how to decide, which I have told you. Pause the screen and write it down, this portion also. This all will be available in your notes. Yes, now let us practice one more question. there is no question given in your CMA module regarding this mini-max principle, that is pure strategy. So let us practice on our own. Very simple question, please observe. Practice question number 1. You have to write down this question, okay, since there is no question given. For the following payoff matrix for firm A, determine optimal strategies for both firm A and B and value of the game using maxi mini max principle. Okay, so let us solve this part. Now this is the question given to you, firm A and firm B. Now on this only I will solve. So first, this is the maxi minimum rule we have to follow. So what we are going to do is we are going to follow the first, this portion, this is first, and then we have to follow this portion, right? So for each row, because first we always do for the maximizing player. Now start memorizing the steps. So we have to follow the row, we have to select the row minimum value. From each row we have to select the minimum value. See, first step is this minimum value. We have given you the logic also. Now in this row, which is the minimum value in this row, it is -1. In this row, which is the minimum value, is -1. Which is the minimum value in this row, it is 6, right? And in this it is minimum value is -4, right? Now in each column you have to take the out of this, yes, and also this, out of this, let me write it properly. Yes, out of this, since you have chosen minimum values from each rows, now select the maximum value. That will be the strategy of firm A. So out of this, what is the maximum value? Maximum value is 6. So 6 is the value, and the strategy is the third strategy. Strategy names are not mentioned, so you can say the third strategy is the giving the value 6, maximum value. Now same steps we are going to follow, same pattern we are going to follow in columns, but this rule will be followed. Mini max, here this will be the first part and this will be the second part. Maximum of each columns. So for columns you have to select maximum. So for each column, what is the maximum value? 16. Here what is the maximum value? 11. Here maximum value is, in the third column maximum value is 6. Here the maximum value is 14. Here the maximum value is 12, right? Now which is out, now follow the second part, which is the select the minimum value. So out of this, the minimum value is this 6. So this will be the strategy of firm B, that is again the third strategy. So we are going to choose the third. So optimal strategy is which strategy? Optimal strategy is firm A, third strategy. Let me write it here. And both are having 6 rupees the value. So it is also a zero sum game, because value both the values are same for both the parties. Firm A should choose optimal strategy, should be third strategy. And for firm B also, this is the, since there is no name mentioned, so if I name these strategies, these will be third strategy, right? If I give them the names, they will be third strategy. Firm B should also go ahead with third strategy. Now let us move on to the little bit more tricky question. Question number 2. Again, not very tricky, but still variety. Okay, so let us start with question number 2. Simple question, so I'm moving it fastly. Solve the game whose payoff matrix using maxim mini-max principle. Again the same thing. Now here players B strategy is given to you, B1, B2, B3, B4, and player A strategies names are mentioned, A1, A2, A3. And this is the payoff matrix. Again the same thing I will be doing. Now what we are going to do, this is your row operation we will sorry. Now this is for maximizing player. This first I will do, then later on this selection I will do. So row minimum. So from each row I will select the minimum value. 16 minus 60, 56, 58 minus 58. So minus 60 is the minimum value. Minus 28, 20, 18 minus 24, so minus 24 is the minimum value. Then out of this is again minus 24, out of which I will select the maximum value. Now out of these lowest values, maximum is 24. Now there are two 24s minus 24, this is the maximum. So that means for player A, optimal strategies can be A2 and A3, A2 and A3, right? Which gives them negative value, which gives them value minus 24. That is, they have a least loss. Okay. Then if you go ahead with the, now let us do with the minimizing player, player B. Now for each column you have to select the, this will be the step number 1 and this will be again then step number 2. So maximum, that is column, from each column you have to select maximum value. So what is the maximum value of this column? 24. What is the maximum value of this column? 28. What is the maximum value of this column? 56. What is the maximum value? Out of these negative, maximum value is minus 24. Then out of these maximum value, you have to select the minimum value. What is the minimum value? Minus 24. So that means for firm B, this is the optimal strategy. So for player B, optimal strategy is B4, which gives them minimum loss, or you can say, don't write that, optimal strategy is B4. Okay, so we have to give the strategy now. So, and the value of the firm is minus 24. Either firm A chooses A2 or A3, both of them gives them negative loss. So firm A will have a loss and firm B will have a gain of 24. Okay, so please write down the write down this example. Both examples are important. First write down this example, pause the screen and write it down. Pause the screen and write it down. Don't get into the thinking process. I have already explained why firm A and firm B will choose these strategies. Now just memorize the rule, maxi, mini, then mini, max principle for pure strategy, and the value which is coming out is a saddle point. In this case it is 6 rupees. In this case it is 24 minus 24. This is the saddle point, the value of the firm, the payoff from the game. Pause the screen and write it down. I am changing the example. Practice question. Pause the screen and write it down. Pause the screen and write it down. Yes, so we have now understood the how to handle pure strategy game, where we know if we take this action, other party will take counter back with following strategy. So what should be our optimal strategy? Now we have learned about pure mixed strategy, and afterwards, yes, now rules of payoff matrix. Now you will understand this, that rules of payoff matrix basically represents that in the rows you write about the maximizing player. Row denote the activities or course of action available to player A, who is considered to be maximizing player, who is always wanting the profit to be maximum. Column B denote activities and course of action available to player B, who is considered minimizing player, who wants to minimize his loss, because this matrix represents what? the values which are presented there represents what? Gain to one party and loss to other party. So other party would like to have minimum loss. Figures above in the cell represents, suppose Xij denotes payment to player A when he chooses the activity I and against B's choice of activity J. Important. For a two-person zero-sum game, any cell entry of player B's payoff matrix will be negative corresponding to cell entry in the player's A's payoff matrix. So that the sum of payoff of the two players ultimately 0. Basically here we are telling you that whatever is mentioned there in plus sign, it is the payoff to one party. That means it is a value gain to one party and loss to other party. And if it is mentioned in minus, like in our examples, these are what? These are payoffs which firm A will get, and if firm A gains, firm B loses. So that is what it is written here. Okay. Then what is optimal strategy? We have just learned how to find optimal strategy. And if this optimal strategy will give, this is your preferred position after considering the other party's course of action, others party strategy. This is your preferred position which will give you maximum benefit definitely, but considering the other party's course of action. So optimal strategy is a course of action which puts the player in the most preferred position irrespective of strategy of his competitors is called optimal strategy. Not opting for this strategy will result in decreased payoff. You will not get better payoff than this. Okay. Value of gain, we have understood. Value of gain means that what value you get by the end of the game. It is the expected payoff of the play when all players of the game choose their optimal strategy. The game is called fair if value of the game is 0. It is unfair if the value of the game is non-zero. When the value will be non-zero, when one party's gain and other party's loss is not equal, then the sum of gain and loss is not equal, then it is we are saying the game is unfair. Okay. So this is, and when you are playing this game theory or you are analyzing this game theory and taking the rules that we are teaching you, we assume there are certain assumptions in this theory. First, we are assuming that all competitors will act rationally and intelligently, which I have told you in the beginning. Sometimes rational behavior might be missed out, but normally everybody is rational, but still in business people do take irrational decisions. Each player has finite set of strategies available to him. We are thinking that other party have 4 options only, we have 3 options only, but it is a possibility that they might have other options. The players attempt to maximize gain and minimize losses. We are assuming that we want to maximize gain and minimize our losses. All relevant information is available to each player. The players take individual decision without direct communication with each other. We are assuming that players select their strategy simultaneously. Payoff. This is also very important. It is not necessary that when I decide, you also decide at the same time. But here in this game theory, we are thinking that whatever I will decide, at the same time only you will also take your course of action. And payoff is fixed and determined in advance. We are so decisive that, okay, we know how much payoff will come. For example, in this example, you very well know what will be the payoff. So we have already know the payoff in advance. So these are all the assumptions that we have taken into account while thinking about the rules of game theory. So this is your first lecture on game theory. In the next lecture, we will be studying about how to solve questions regarding mixed strategy. Okay, so pure strategy, we know which rule to follow, and now in the next lecture we will be focusing on how to choose the optimal strategy under mixed strategy situation. Okay, so this much for this session. Have a nice day. And before that, I hope you have written all this. Just a second, let me enlarge the screen once again. If something is missed out, please write it down. Yes, from here I think you have not written. If not written, then pause the screen and write it down. Otherwise, even though I will be attaching this PDF file along with the lectures, so please write it down if you want to. Pause the screen and write it down. These are the rules of payoff matrix which I have just explained to you. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Then there is this optimal strategy we have just discussed. Optimal strategy is the strategy which is the preferred position for both the parties, and it gives you, if you do not go ahead with the optimal strategy, then the payoff will be less. You get the best payoff under optimal strategy. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. Pause the screen and write it down. I'm scrolling the page. These are assumptions in a game. Pause the screen and write it down. Yes. So this much for this session, and in the next session we will be doing the mixed strategy principles. So thank you for this lecture. Have a nice day.